Hello, and thank you for joining me. I'm Jennifer Smith, your friendly neighborhood naturopath. I am not your doctor. I'm also not a medical doctor, and this information has not been evaluated by the FDA. Therefore, it is not intended to cure, treat, prevent, or diagnose any disease. This is for general educational purposes only, so please speak with your healthcare practitioner for advice specific to your unique condition. So, today's topic is about cardiovascular health. And as usual, we've got 30 minutes of content followed by 9 minutes of Q&A that I'll read from the chat. And then that way we'll wrap up in the magical number of 39 minutes, I should say. So um, let's see. Despite all the drugs, scans, surgical procedures, and tests, heart disease remains the number one killer in America. And, I looked up a statistic earlier that we spend one out of every six healthcare dollars on cardiovascular care, and it's still the number one killer. So, I'm not legally able to discuss specific diagnoses such as atrial fibrillation, myocarditis, or cardiovascular, I should say coronary artery disease. But I will say that there's so much that you can do to promote healthy cardiovascular function without falling victim to the defeatist narrative that everything is genetic. So, anyway, what is the cardiovascular system? Well, it is a network comprised of the heart and blood vessels, over 60,000 miles worth of blood vessels, I might add, that's responsible for transporting blood, oxygen, nutrients, hormones, and waste through the body. And so, for this reason, it's also known as the circulatory system. And I feel that when you boil it down, this complex system, when you boil it down to just its overall function, it becomes easier to understand what harms this function and what helps it. So, and I will say that the allopathic medical system is excellent for treating heart attacks and other acute cardiovascular events, but it's simply not equipped for prevention or helping people to avoid these conditions that arise mostly as a result of unhealthy lifestyle habits. And not to say that blood work doesn't can't be helpful. I mean, it can reveal deficiencies like magnesium, potassium, CoQ10, omega 3s. Those heart healthy nutrients that you might be lacking. So it's not without merit, but really the allopathic medical system really excels at acute care when it comes to cardiovascular health. And as a matter of fact, many pharmaceutical drugs deplete those critical nutrients that I mentioned. One example would be statin drugs, for example, for cholesterol actually deplete CoQ10 levels, which is crucial for healthy heart function. So you probably hear of people who are on statin drugs for cholesterol and then they have a heart attack. So anyway, but I think I'll just start by going over some unhealthy habits to avoid, things that harm the cardiovascular system, and then we'll get into the healthy habits. So, and of course patching, but I think topping the list, and we all know this, would be smoking or the modern day version, which is vaping. And I'll tell you something that most people you probably won't hear anywhere else is I will say if you're going to smoke, at least use a like a healthy, or I shouldn't say healthy, but like an heirloom organic tobacco rather than one that's been sprayed by all kinds of chemicals, because really it's the pyrazines and the other toxic chemicals that are full of heavy metals and all kinds of toxins that really are what's mostly harmful for us more so than anything. So just something to think about there. But alcohol is another one. And in alcohol consumption, this is not coming from a position of judgment, I might add, but just some misconceptions about alcohol consumption. So you definitely want to keep it to a minimum. But we all tend to think that, gosh, I'm stressed. I need to have a drink and relax. Well, alcohol is actually known to raise blood pressure, not lower it. And it also contributes to liver toxicity. So there's a direct connection between our liver and the cardiovascular system. As a matter of fact, your liver has many, many functions, one of which is filtering the blood. And so it does the best it can, but if our blood is still sluggish and full of heavy metals and all kinds of chemicals and whatever else, then glyphosate, that's another thing that a lot of alcohol nowadays is full of. And then your blood pulls it up from there. And if that blood is still thick and sluggish, it would, it can certainly cause impact on the heart, especially as it refers to blood pressure. If you think about it, it's almost like you're drinking a milkshake or a smoothie, trying to drink it through a little cocktail straw. That's why poor liver health can impair blood pressure or directly affect it. Other things when it comes to alcohol is a lot of the sugars that are in alcohol, especially wine, and also sleep impairment. Alcohol prevents us a lot of times from getting into that nice deep REM sleep. So some things to keep in mind there. You just want to keep it to a minimum and look for healthier versions of alcoholic beverages, maybe organic versions. Sugar is another thing to consider. So, and I love a nice treat, a nice sugary treat, but keeping it to a minimum, and especially high fructose corn syrup, which is the absolute worst form of sugar that directly impacts the liver and the cardiovascular system. High fructose corn syrup contributes to building visceral fat, especially like epicardial fat, and contributes to insulin resistance, which that has a direct impact on cardiovascular function and liver toxicity, big time. So avoiding high fructose corn syrup, it's in everything, processed food in general. And while we're on the subject of sugar, I think I should probably address salt. Because years ago we were told anyone with heart problems, you need to go on a sodium-free diet or a low salt diet, and a lot of times those people continue to have heart problems, and that's because there's no distinction between the form or the type of salt. So of course you don't want to consume the bleached and processed table salt that's full of microplastics and stripped of all trace minerals that we need. And that's what you're going to find in all processed food, by the way. But you want to go for a healthier salt because our bodies, we need sodium, but we need the healthier form. So like maybe pink Himalayan salt, Celtic salt, the ones that are richer in trace minerals. Uh, and then another thing to consider avoiding is seed oils. So we're hearing more and more about them, thank goodness. But the main ones would be corn, soy, canola, and cottonseed oil. Those are the main ones. They're all genetically modified. And again, you're going to find them all in processed food. You're going to find them in restaurants too, by the way. Nearly all restaurants use them, not just fast food restaurants. They use them to fry foods in. They use them in even salad dressings. So, and if you're craving some kind of fried food, by the way, I mean you can make it at home using a healthier oil. Like if you want to make your own homemade French fries, you can use coconut oil or beef tallow or avocado oil. So those are all examples of oils that have healthy oils that have a high smoke point. You don't want to use like olive oil for something like that, but you do want to use extra virgin olive oil for things like lower temperature items or cold items like salad dressing. Extra virgin olive oil is extremely heart healthy, so that would be a good one. So yeah, give yourself an oil change and swap out those bad fats, bad oils for the good ones. Poor EMF hygiene is another one to avoid for the cardiovascular system because we are light beings and we're also electrical beings, which is why, cardiologists, they use EKG, for example, because we are electrical beings, but you want to avoid those the unhealthy electricity. So like, I always cringe when I see maybe a man place his cell phone in his shirt pocket right next to his heart, or a woman placing her cell phone in her bra. You don't want to do that. Also, keeping your cell phone away from, out of the bedroom, far away from your heart, your brain, at night when you sleep, turning off the Wi-Fi, things like that. I know I talk about that a lot, but just optimizing, or I should say, avoiding those unhealthy EMFs as much as possible. Let's see. Unnecessary stress. And let's face it, most of it is unnecessary. We do tend to get stressed out about a lot of things that we simply can't control. And if you don't think you're doing it, try giving yourself a media fast for like even just a week, because a lot of what we see on the news and on social media, I mean, there's nothing we can do about it anyway. And so I challenge you to try that for a week, just avoiding the news and avoiding social media, and see how you feel, because nobody's got time for that. So, um, yeah, something to consider. Sedentary lifestyle is another thing. And, think back to our ancestors that, they weren't sitting around binging on Netflix like we tend to do. And, I've often said before that I think that's why New Yorkers that's why they survive in New York City, because New York City is a pretty toxic place. Lots of pollution and traffic and late nights and, overall unhealthy, but very few New Yorkers drive or have cars. They walk everywhere. So, but yeah, just moving your body, and I'll elaborate that a little bit more about that in a bit. But sedentary lifestyle is definitely devastating to the cardiovascular system, and circulatory system, as it's also called. So think of it that way. Neglecting oral health is another one. I'm sure you've all heard of that. There's a direct connection between mouth bacteria and heart disease. So just simple things like brushing your teeth first thing in the morning rather than getting busy doing other things. And the next thing you know, several hours have slipped by. And maybe addressing gum disease or any, periodontal conditions. So oral health directly affects heart health. Let's see what else. Oh, ignoring sources of heavy metals or even lighter metals like aluminum. Technically, aluminum is not a heavy metal, but um, metals directly impact the cardiovascular system, and they're in a lot of things. Tap water would be one, so you want to filter your water. Antiperspirant, vaccines. A lot of most vaccines contain metals, like aluminum, for example. Some contain mercury. They're supposed to eliminate that. We'll see. Pesticides is another source of metals. Pesticides and a lot of chemical fertilizers. So again, choosing organic or when you can, or growing some of your own food can certainly help with that. Another thing would be avoiding large predatory fish. Like a good example would be tuna. Tuna tends to be kind of full of mercury. So keeping that to a minimum. A lot of pharmaceutical drugs can contain metals. Even basic things like antacids. A lot of antacids contain aluminum. Gosh, what else? Pollution, cigarettes. Standard cigarettes tend to be a source of metals because of what is sprayed on the tobacco. And I often talk about cans like beer and soda cans. If you are drinking those things, you don't want to drink them out of a can, an aluminum can, or use aluminum foil, especially in heat. Amalgam fillings, they're those old silver fillings, which are 50% mercury and 50% like a blend, an amalgam, or I should say, yeah, a mixture of metals like an alloy. So every time you cough, sneeze, or chew, or drink something hot, those vapors are being released into your body. And as a matter of fact, for that reason, a lot of some cardiologists actually perform chelation therapy because they know the impact that heavy metals have on the cardiovascular system. So something to consider. But let's move on to some simple daily habits that are good for the cardiovascular system. So we went over some things that are harmful. How about the good ones? Well, first and foremost, hydration. And that first water of the day, to me, is the most important because, I talk about this a lot when we sleep. If we're sleeping well, our bodies are undergoing this wonderful healing, cleansing, detoxification process. And plus, if we are, mouth breathing while we're sleeping, you're waking up dehydrated. And so you want to help flush your body. You want to help the cardiovascular system and other systems in the body. And I personally start my day every day with about a good 16, maybe 20 ounces of water or more first thing. So, and then after that, you don't want to be just chugging water all day. You want to kind of sip it, spread it out throughout the day. But yeah, that first morning water, filtered water, I think is the most important. And maybe consider some healthy electrolytes in some of your water because again, the sodium, magnesium, potassium are those are all heart healthy nutrients that are oftentimes depleted from things like EMFs that we're exposed to, that unhealthy electricity. Another thing that I often talk about that's particularly good for the cardiovascular system is sunshine. So, especially that morning sun prior to 10 a.m., but really any time, a good 10, at least 15 minutes of sunshine per day has so many benefits, not the least of which is elevating your body's natural levels of vitamin D, triggering your body to produce vitamin D, I should say. And I often say, don't take it if you can make it. And, such is the case with vitamin D. You're always going to be better off to elevate your own, to trigger your body's ability to produce its own levels of vitamin D than taking a supplement. But if it's been raining nonstop for weeks, then of course, consider a supplement. But vitamin D has so many benefits for your immune system, your cardiovascular system, and so much more. But for one, it's a natural anti-inflammatory. It helps to kind of keep inflammation at bay, which is beneficial for the cardiovascular system. It helps with the circadian rhythm. So because sleep is beneficial for the cardiovascular system, so it helps with that. And also mood and stress helps to lower stress, helps keep mood in check, helps us to avoid depression. So lots of benefits to just to getting a little bit of sunshine each day. Sleep optimization is another one. Sleep is sacred. And, especially if you've got a condition like sleep apnea, that can really be devastating to the cardiovascular system. If you stop breathing repeatedly throughout the night, then that can elevate blood pressure and just have a cascading effect on the cardiovascular system and affect it negatively. So optimizing sleep and doing things like practicing deep abdominal breathing, nasal breathing, in through the nose and, out through the mouth, expanding down low. And gosh, that can help to produce nitric oxide, which is nature's vasodilator. So yeah, just optimizing your sleep, maybe using essential oils to help with that, and just letting go because again, stressing over things that there's nothing we can do about it, that is certainly harmful to our cardiovascular health. And, they say that stress will kill you. That's almost an understatement. So getting that under control and optimizing sleep can be a part of that. And then, of course, exercise. We all know that exercise is good for the cardiovascular system and just our overall health in general. So many benefits. And for years, there's been ongoing debate as to to which kind of exercise is the best for cardiovascular health, it doesn't matter. It all is, it doesn't matter if it's gosh, high intensity training or weightlifting or aerobic or whatever, just anything moving your body is great for the cardiovascular system and doing what you love. Like I particularly do not like to go to the gym, but I love to jump on my little rebounder trampoline for a few minutes. I like to swim, ride bike. I like to go for walks through my neighborhood, especially my neighborhood trails. And I just the other day purchased some weights. It was recommended to me by a friend, and like ankle weights to go around to add extra added weight. And I'm eventually going to get maybe a weighted vest and some wrist weights as well. So that completely changes the dynamic of just a leisurely stroll and really ramps that up. So I'm looking forward to doing that. So do what you enjoy, but one thing that I've recommended this for years, and you can easily find this on YouTube. Go on YouTube and search for the 4 Minute Workout by Dr. Zach Bush. That is a fantastic, quick little exercise because I know me, it's so easy for me to say, oh, I don't have time to work out, or that's always an easy excuse. But we all have 4 minutes, and that 4 minute workout is a especially great exercise for helping your body to produce optimal levels of nitric oxide. Again, your natural nature's vasodilator. So yeah, and I think Dr. Mercola demonstrates the 4 minute workout as well. But look that up. Again, Dr. Zach Bush, 4 minute workout, and I think you'll benefit from that. I often do that, sometimes several times throughout the day. Optimizing nutrition, of course, nutrition is foundational to our whole body, not just the cardiovascular system, but everything in our body. But one thing as it relates to the cardiovascular system, I feel like God always gives us clues if you look for them. And the cardiovascular system particularly loves in just about anything red, whole foods that are red, I should say. So an example would be, berries, for example. Just about any kind of berry is going to be good, for the heart, for the cardiovascular system, whether it be strawberries, cherries, raspberries, blueberries. I know technically blueberries aren't red, but just about any berry, especially wild blueberries, they're richer in anthocyanins, that deep pigment. But other red things, pomegranate seeds or pomegranate juice. And in fact, there are studies that have been performed on the effects of pomegranate seeds and pomegranate juice on the cardiovascular system. And I'm not always a big fan of clinical studies because so many of them can be altered, I guess you might say. But anyway, it's certain types of studies can be, I'll just say. But it's pretty easy to find studies done with the effects of pomegranate juice on the cardiovascular system, and it doesn't take a lot. I mean, even just a couple of ounces per day can be beneficial, very beneficial. Another red beverage would be hibiscus tea made from, red hibiscus flowers. And that can have, it's also rich in anthocyanins, and it can have a direct and pretty quick impact on lowering on blood pressure. In fact, so much so that people who tend to run low, like my blood pressure tends to run a little bit on the low side. It has historically. And someone like me, I have to be careful to not consume too much hibiscus tea because it can lower my blood pressure too much. So again, not a recommendation here. I'm just, bringing some things to light, informing you of some things you might not be aware of. Okay. Another red food item that the cardiovascular system loves would be wild caught salmon. So you never want to get farm raised, but wild caught salmon is going to be rich in omega 3s, for example, which is another heart healthy nutrient. So those nice healthy fats. Other healthy fatty fish would be, gosh, like mackerel, sardines, which I'm not crazy about, but they're very heart healthy. But I think probably the best would be wild caught salmon, and then also beets, another red food that's great for the heart. Beets are a natural source of nitric oxide as well, so that natural vasodilator. Another thing is cayenne pepper. So in America, we tend to not really look at our medicine cabinet, or I should say, our spice cabinet as a medicine cabinet. But I do. There is so much medicine in your spice cabinet, not the least of which is cayenne pepper. In fact, many naturopaths, certainly this one, for example, I always travel with cayenne pepper. And so, for example, if I found myself in a situation where someone in front of me was having a heart attack and 911 was called and they're nowhere to be found and this person is dying in front of me, I might consider getting some cayenne in that person. I would probably use the liquid extract, but you can save someone's life that way. So cayenne loves to open up the blood vessels and promote healthy blood flow. It's like a natural blood thinner and so much more. So let's see, another red thing, and I'm sure there are some others I'm forgetting. Grass-fed beef. We've been told for years, avoid red meat. Well, you do want to avoid like the processed red meat or the factory farmed red meat, but a little bit of grass-fed beef can be very helpful for the cardiovascular system. Just like anything else, just like the wild caught salmon as opposed to farm raised. And then if you're looking for a healthy treat, would be dark chocolate or raw cacao, which is what it's made of. So you want to get the dark and the raw as opposed to like Hershey's milk chocolate, which is full of all kinds of chemicals. And oftentimes I am asked about what I recommend as far as healthy diet for this or that, whether I recommend vegan or vegetarian or carnivore or whatever. But I mean, we're all different and we all like different things. And then you have to factor in allergies and things like that. So some people function better on certain diets versus others. You obviously want to avoid anything you're allergic to, but if I had to choose one diet that's particularly helpful for the heart, for the cardiovascular system, I would have to say the Mediterranean diet because it's whole food based. It is healthy, small amounts of like grass-fed meat, wild caught fish, and then mostly vegetables, fruits, vegetables. So really an easy rule of thumb is if it's something that you grew, you pulled it off a tree or out of the ground, or you shot it or you caught it, then chances are it's healthy. But if it's man-made, then chances are it's not. So and then also another consideration, which can be part of the Mediterranean diet, would be things like almonds, walnuts, again, sources of omega-3s, hemp seeds, chia seeds, avocados, all those healthy fats, those omega-3s, which are very good for the heart. So, um, let's talk patching. And for those of you who are new to this call, I'll just start by saying that these patches are a form of wearable phototherapy and they're non-transdermal. So unlike the patches that you might be familiar with, like the transdermal patches such as the nicotine patch or the birth control patch, those are examples of patches that are transferring drugs, chemicals, hormones, or other substances into the body through the skin, the dermis. And I mentioned this is a form of wearable phototherapy. So rather than standing in front of or inside of a phototherapy phototherapy machine or like red lights. These patches are tapping into your own body as the power source, and they're merely reflecting back wavelengths of light that we all naturally emit as mammals. So I'm sure you've all probably seen a movie where the military uses night vision goggles to track their soldiers. Well, those goggles are picking up on the infrared light that all mammals naturally emit from our cells, actually from the moment of conception and for the rest of our life. So, yeah, because in addition to being electrical beings, we are light beings, and you're all emitting light from your cells. All of you on this call, you're emitting light from your cells right this very moment. And these patches are so simple to use. You simply wear them 12 hours a day, 12 hours on and 12 hours off while you're fully hydrated. So your 12-hour window might be 7 to 7, or somebody else's might be 10 to 10. So it's whatever works with your schedule. And so I'm going to go over, the argument could be said that pretty much all of LifeWave's patches, they make 10 different patches, and pretty much all of them can contribute to vibrant cardiovascular health in one way or the other, but I had to limit it. So I limited it to 4 patches, and don't let this overwhelm you, but there is some overlap. But the first one is the Aeon patch. I love this patch, and I wear this every night. And this is one of the patches that can be worn day or night. I started out wearing it during the daytime, and then I eventually moved to nighttime because I paired it with X39. But the Aeon patch, like the other patches, has many benefits, but the two primary benefits of Aeon is first of all, it helps to lower stress levels by balancing the autonomic nervous system. So that sympathetic fight, flight, or freeze mode that I often talk about versus parasympathetic rest, digest, repair. And so by lowering stress levels, that alone has benefits to the cardiovascular system. And then the other primary benefit that the Aeon patch is known for is it serves as a broad spectrum anti-inflammatory. It can reduce things like cytokines, fibrinogen, and even C-reactive proteins, which rise in response to inflammation. And C-reactive proteins have a direct, can be directly linked to things like heart disease, heart attack, stroke, things like that. So the Aeon patch is one that I love. That's certainly worth mentioning. Another would be Carnosine. The Carnosine patch has so many benefits, and it's also in the YH series, same as the Aeon patch, because they can't just call it Carnosine, because Carnosine is something that our body naturally produces. It's a dipeptide made up of beta alanine and histidine that our bodies naturally produce. And so the YH carnosine patch merely elevates those levels and, by reflecting back wavelengths of light into the body. And carnosine is a fantastic peptide that, it's primarily known as your anti-aging peptide. And gosh, it's known for so many things, the anti-glycation effect, among other things. And reducing or avoiding glycation, that's something that certainly impacts blood sugar levels, which I talked about earlier, as it results or as it relates to the cardiovascular system. So that is a big benefit to the cardiovascular system. And, also carnosine is known for its methylchelating ability. And it helps your body to naturally release aluminum. And so that's a lovely side benefit there. I talked about that earlier. Eye health is another thing carnosine is known for. As a matter of fact, our tears contain carnosine. Because again, this is a peptide that your body naturally produces. So this is just helping to elevate that peptide that has declined with age. But carnosine, I would say, is probably most known for its neuroprotective and for the brain and the heart, cardiovascular and heart protection. And so lots of benefits there. Again, I can't mention specific diseases, but let's just say carnosine is known to nurture the cardiovascular system. Another patch that is certainly worth mentioning is X49. Now, the X49 elevates another peptide in the body. It elevates the AHK copper peptide. A for alanine versus G for glycine, which I'll get to in a moment. But the AHK copper peptide is primarily found like in the musculoskeletal system, the cardiovascular system, and neurological system. So that's why it's known for heart health or cardiovascular health, I should say, and also neurological health. And so much overlap again, with our bodily systems because the heart and brain, there's a definite connection there, the liver, the lungs, so on and so forth. So I will say that when it comes to X49, if you're a person that has a specific cardiovascular uh, symptom, gosh, I have to choose my words carefully. That is a patch that you very well may want to consider. And then last but not least is X39. X39 has so many benefits for the entire body. It elevates the the GHK copper peptide in the body. Again, our bodies naturally produce the GHK copper peptide, but with so many things, it declines with age. So when you naturally elevate your own native levels of GHK copper peptide, there's so many benefits in itself with that, with regard to like wound healing and the skin, healthy skin, but it also resets over 4,000 genes to a younger, healthier state, one of which activates your tired stem cells that have kind of gone to sleep, kind of slipped into retirement over the years. And so your stem cells elevate at pretty much the same rate as your the GHK copper peptide. They rise in tandem. And so many benefits to doing that, to elevating stem cells and GHK copper peptide. But the GHK copper peptide runs throughout our entire bodies. It's primarily found in our plasma. So it's found throughout the whole body, which is why that it provides such a wide range of benefits. But there are really three bodily systems or let's say three organs, I guess, that elevating that peptide can particularly help to nourish when you wear the X39 patch. And that would be the lungs. Again, the pulmonary system relates to the cardiovascular system, the heart, and the brain, the neurological system. So all really connected. So many benefits with that. In fact, there's a great clinical study that I love that was done on using the X39 patch with the cardiovascular system that you can find online. But for time purposes, I guess I've gone over again. I need to get on to questions. And before I start reading questions from the chat, I need to remind you that if you were invited here from someone else other than me, to please get back with them, connect with them if you would like to purchase LifeWave's fantastic phototherapy patches. And that person, first of all, thank them for inviting you here, for caring enough about you to do that. And that person can help you to maybe determine which patches might be the best for you and to help you get the best pricing. And so I'll go ahead here and jump into the questions. That always helps me keep in track. I love reading your questions. So my husband drinks powdered beet juice every morning for high blood pressure. He researched this on his own. Kudos to him. Oh my gosh, I love to hear that. That is fantastic. Again, the cardiovascular system tends to love things that are red, and beet juice is a source of nitric oxide. So of course, it's going to have beneficial effects for blood pressure. So thank you for sharing that. I love to hear that. What else? Thank you for this. Okay, good information. Thank you. Very informative. Okay. Um, Anything else? Any other questions? Is that all? Well. Okay, I guess I'm kind of pretty much right on time, but yeah, I guess I just have to say, with regard to cardiovascular health, just avoiding those things that impair cardiovascular health and turning toward the things that help it. And really, at the end of the day, God has all the answers. There's natural medicine all around us, and so many natural solutions. So yeah, thank you again so much for joining me today. And we'll be back here next Wednesday. It's always on jennifersmithzoom.com, always live at 5 Eastern, and then I'll post the replay on YouTube. So thanks again so much and have a nice evening. Take care. Bye-bye.